The story of the Lithuanian Holocaust.
Prior to the June 22, 1941 invasion of Lithuania by the Germans, Lithuania was controlled by Soviet Russia. The Lithuanians looked to the Soviets and the Germans to protect their rights as human beings. The Soviets and the Germans did not feel any responsibility toward other human beings. Ruta Sepetys felt it was her responsibility to educate the world. She did so with a book. The Lithuanian Holocaust forever altered the ethnic makeup and culture of Lithuania and the Jewish community.
The atrocities of Hitler and the Nazis are well known, but many people don't know that Joseph Stalin killed over 20 million people during his reign of terror. People often say to me, "Ruta, I know my history. How is it that I have never heard this story before?"
Before the Lithuanian Holocaust, Lithuania was under Russian rule for a century, and then was an independent country from the end of World War I until 1940, when it was occupied by the Soviet Union again.
Before World War II, there were about 9.5 million Jews who lived in Europe in 1933 when the Nazis came into power in Germany.
Before World War II, there were 160,000 Jews in Lithuania, or 7% of the population. Lithuania was historically home to a large and influential Jewish community that was almost entirely eliminated during the Holocaust. Before the Lithuanian Holocaust, there were 105 synagogues and prayer houses, 6 daily Jewish newspapers, and Yiddish was the language of choice in the city of Vilnius. In 1935 Germany, Hitler authorized the race and resettlement laws. Those laws kicked Jews out of public schools, certain professions like teaching and medicine, and forbid Jews and non-Jews to marry or date.
Discrimination against Jews accelerated. November 9, 1938 is known as Night of the Broken Glass, which is considered a turning point for the treatment of all European Jews. Orders were given to destroy Jewish shops, invade Jewish homes, and vandalize Jewish temples. Germany was not a safe place for Jews to live, and many left the country using any means possible.
On August 23, 1939, the Soviets and Germany signed the Treaty of Non-Aggression. This is also known as the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact or the Nazi-Soviet Pact. The treaty guaranteed that the two countries would not attack each other. The Treaty of Non-Aggression included a secret protocol that divided the territories of Romania, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland between the Nazis and Soviets.
In 1939, Hitler and Stalin signed a pact of non-aggression, and Stalin got the Baltics. So in 1940, the Baltics were annexed into the Soviet Union, and the countries of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia disappeared from maps.
The Soviets invaded Lithuania in 1940. The Soviets said they had the support of the Lithuanian people. They promised Lithuania many things, but ultimately it was a reign of terror and violence. At the time of the invasion, the Jews of Lithuania were generally supportive of the Soviet occupation and the Soviet regime in Lithuania. The Soviet takeover culminated on June 14, 1941, with the arrest and deportation of 27,000 Lithuanian citizens. Some Lithuanians fled the country, while others fiercely resisted the takeover.
Nazi troops invaded Lithuania on June 22, 1941, and Soviet authorities fled. Soon after this invasion, violence erupted, including acts of murder, rape, looting, and abuse. The forest of Ponar became a killing ground for tens of thousands of Jews. On August 15, 1941, the ghettos in Kovno, Lithuania were sealed, and the Germans ordered the 20,000 Jewish inhabitants imprisoned in the poorer section of Slobodka suburb.
Stalin drafted lists of those he considered anti-Soviet, and those included military personnel, doctors, lawyers, business owners, teachers, librarians, even priests and children. And they had committed no crime. They were all arrested, the men separated from the women. Everyone was stuffed into cattle cars. The men went to prison, and the women were sent to Siberia. And with no risk of pregnancy, Stalin's plan for genocide would be complete. However, he underestimated their will to live.
By October 1941, most of the Jewish males above the age of 16 had already been murdered.
Lithuania suffered 3 years of German domination. Jews were starved and forced into labor. In the fall of 1943, approximately 1,200 babies, children, and elderly were murdered in the Kovno ghetto, and many youngsters were sent to labor camps in Estonia. In July 1944, the ghettos at Kovno and Swekini were liquidated, and many of the Jews were sent to camps under German control, including Stutthof, Dachau, and Auschwitz.
In June 1945, the Soviets who occupied Lithuania started mass deportations into areas of the Soviet Union. More than 200,000 people were deported into Siberia between 1940 and 1953.
I did a lot of research in writing the book, and I took a couple trips to Lithuania. I met with survivors, historians, family members, members of parliament. I spent time in an actual train car that was used for the deportations, and I also spent time in a Soviet prison. There were so many labor camps across Siberia. I decided to write about the people who were deported to the Arctic because the conditions were just so unfathomable.
As a result of the Holocaust in Lithuania, most Jews were forced to live in ghettos. Families were separated. The Germans killed about 90% of all the Lithuanian Jews, the highest victim rate in Europe. As the result of genocide, European Jewish life was changed forever.
Today, only a fraction of Lithuania's population is Jewish. 4,000 Jews live in Lithuania compared to 160,000 in the 1930s. 95% of the Jewish community was murdered during the Holocaust.
Lithuania's large and influential Jewish community was almost entirely eliminated during the Holocaust. There are only 3 active synagogues today, and few people speak Yiddish anymore.
It was when I was in Lithuania meeting with cousins, and I naively asked, "So, do you have any photos of my grandparents or of my father?" And the room suddenly became very quiet. And they said, "No, Ruta, we had to burn them all. We couldn't let anyone know that we were related to your grandfather." And that's when I knew that I had to tell this story.
On May 8, 1990, Lithuania issued an official statement denouncing genocide on behalf of the Lithuanian people and acknowledging that crimes against the Jews could not be justified. Lithuania built a monument to Holocaust victims and in 2013 made a symbolic payment to survivors.
I met with a survivor who told me that his baby brother had died, and they made a coffin for him, and in the morning they found his body lying on the ground, and someone had stolen the baby's coffin for firewood. And I was shocked and immediately said, "Well, weren't you angry?" And he said, "Ruta, how could I be angry? That firewood might have saved someone's life that night." It's incredible that anybody survived these camps in the Arctic. I tell people, read the book and ask yourself, would I survive?
Ruta Sepetys gave an example of how the Lithuanian people felt responsible for each other's survival. All the people had the right to freedom. All the people had the right to live without the fear of oppression, torture, and genocide. We as a society have the responsibility to make certain these crimes against humanity will never happen again. The Jewish people felt that responsibility to take care of each other during the Holocaust.